Dundee regular board meeting dated Monday, February 7th, 2022, 6 o'clock. Catherine, you take it away.
Trustee Mahoney. Here. Trustee Coonsey.
Present.
Trustee Britton. Here. Trustee Saviano. Here. Trustee Schreiber.
Here.
Trustee Sauter.
Here.
And President Lyon.
Here. And if you'll rise with me to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That takes us to item number 4. That would be public comment on agenda items only. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on an agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I think what we're going to ask to do is shift the consent agenda, and we'll switch that with our regular agenda items. So could I have a motion for that? Switch items 5 and 6. Well, I'm sorry?
Okay, he's saying we'd like to move it up so that we can,
We're doing crowd control.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? But all
So-
items in six?
Yeah, we'll just go with the other agenda items first and then move the consent agenda down below.
all right, so I'll make a motion to rearrange the meeting agenda to move other agenda items in front of consent agenda.
Second.
Catherine?
Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Coonsey.
Yes?
Trustee Britton.
Yes.
Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Schreiber.
Yes.
And Trustee Sauter.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, that'll take us to item A of our regular agenda items, and that is a police officer commendation. So, like, Chief, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I don't have to tell you how important the evidence preservation is to police departments. How many times over the years we have seen police headlines with police screwing up the evidence function. So that's always been a crucial duty of mine. And I want to recognize our evidence custodian. He's Officer Brian McDelitis. And so Brian is in charge of our evidence function, and recently he did an audit, a complete audit. The audit process is very important to me. You've got to make sure you stay on top of this, right? And he produced the single best report of his audit of evidence that I have ever seen. And he itemized 3,858 items of evidence in our evidence room, and he corrected problems that we had in there, and he's still correcting them. So with this commendation, I want to recognize his evidence audit, exemplary performance going above and beyond the normal call of his duty. Thank you.
Okay, well, that'll take us to our second item, which is recognition of Chief Harper.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, I was asked to say a few words, and I thought about it, and how do you sum up in just a few moments, the work and impact and the storied career of an individual like George Carpenter? And the fact is, you can't, at least not in a few moments. So, but what I would like to say, if I had to narrow it down to one word, it would be gratitude. And so, on behalf of a very grateful board and a very grateful community, I would like to recognize George Carpenter in the next chapter of his
Thank
career.
you so much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm overwhelmed. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and an honor for me to serve this community for the past 4 years. So I thank all of you for having me and supporting me. Very, very, very nice of you. In the audience today is my wife Claudia, my daughter Isabella, my son Christopher. My gosh, I'm overwhelmed. This is so nice. But I leave knowing that you have a terrific police department that's been very, very well trained. And I promoted the values that they've embraced: fair treatment and equal protection under the law to all people at all times. The importance of rising to a higher standard of conduct both on and off the job. The importance of using the least force necessary to accomplish our lawful duties. And they do their badge not as a symbol of authority, but as a symbol of public trust. And, you know, they have good values, that's for sure. And I leave knowing that I had a little something to do with that. But when I got here, they were terrific already. And that's important for you to know. You know, it's not like I had to clean up anything. Holy cow, not at all. If anything, they had to clean me up. So I salute them. I salute you. And I know that with the new chief coming in, Jim, terrific guy, great choice. And I wish him all the best, and I wish the officers all the best. And I'm sorry I'm too overwhelmed to say much more. But sincerely, thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so now we have the item for advising consent, the appointment of James Kruger as our police chief. If I could have a motion, please.
I make a motion to advise and consent to the village president's appointment of James Kruger as chief of police.
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Coonsey?
Yes.
Trustee Britton?
No.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Schreiber?
Yes.
Trustee Sauer?
Yes.
Wonderful. So, Kevin, you do the honor? Chief Kruger.
Thank you. Had my daughter come up with me.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, my wife is out of town. She's very sorry she couldn't be here, but I'm very happy to have my daughter here. Dr. Christina was the president of the River Valley Library. And my grandson.
I, James Kruger,
I, James Kruger,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the ordinances of the Village of East Dundee,
and the ordinances of the Village of East Dundee,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Chief of Police
of the Office of Chief of Police
for the Village of East Dundee
for the Village of East Dundee
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Thank you. For the long, I want to thank you and the Board of Trustees for your confidence in me and selecting me for this position. I'm very excited to be here in East Dundee and continue the great work that Chief Carpenter has done and continue to move the organization forward. I'm looking very forward to getting on board and hitting the ground running next Monday. And I can't thank you enough. And I can't wait to sit down and meet all the officers and staff here and get to know them better and really move forward. I'm also very thankful that I've got a lot of people in the audience today besides the family that's come, many friends and colleagues, chiefs of police, former chaplains, and everything in between. So I can't thank them enough for being here and to kind of launch this next chapter of my career. So thank you again.
Welcome, East Dundee.
Thank you.
now we've got the celebratory items on the agenda taken care of, so if anybody would like to, you know, close that, you know.
Two people left. Bring in the crowd for the pre-show. That's the family.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue on. We have item E in the agenda items, so if I could have a motion.
I'd actually like, I think it would be better use if we could have a discussion instead of a motion on items E and F. I don't know if there's a way to do that. I just,
Absolutely can be done
Okay.
with a small board like this.
Okay.
Sometimes that makes more sense.
I think we are, based on what I was reading in the packet and a little bit of research I've done and some other conversations we've had in previous meetings, I'd just like to have a higher level conversation about planning and zoning and number of members and all the stuff that's in here, before we make appointments. And if we do make appointments, I want to have the opportunity to, you know, do my due diligence and talk to people before they come on. So,
Okay.
so do I
So
need to make a
you need
motion
to
to
table-
move these, to table these to discussion?
No, if everyone is acquiescing, we can dispense with those kinds of formalities.
Okay.
Um,
Unless somebody else wants to make one.
Well, I guess I would just say we should have some sort of action item then to where we're gonna pick this up, like if it's scheduling
Agreed.
a special meeting to talk about it, or if it's, whatever, just so that there's a time behind it.
Yeah, well, the misstep, if there was one, was not intentional. It was just a situation where we knew this had been lingering for some time. As a matter of fact, the most recent expiration date of any of the terms of the people that were on the P and Z was 2017. There was one as far back as 2011, so for the last good many years now, the nomination process, the whole attention being paid to the P and Z has been absent. So we just felt like, you know, we need to get this one going, and so I went ahead and I had asked probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 people to fill the 3 seats of the 4 seats that were needed to be filled. And after my third no, I was getting a little, you know, disappointed and a little bit nervous. But I was able to find the 3 individuals that we put up, actually the 4. And so you have those before you, and if you if we want to talk about this, that would be good. Kathleen had made mention of putting something out on the village's Facebook site to let people know that there is these openings available, and I'm okay with that. The appointment process is mine, but I have no objection to advertising for it. Again, from my experience with it, it was a little demeaning simply because there was less interest than I had hoped, you know, there would be. But the individuals that did agree are very civic minded. They're interested in helping out the community in any way they can, and so that was encouraging. So,
There's, I think my, as we communicated in the email, My biggest concern is that I do not feel comfortable with advising and consenting on an appointment if I haven't met them, I don't understand the motivations, the qualifications, what are the things that are bringing them to want to serve in this capacity. I've done it before. I was interviewed when I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission by two of the trustees at that point in time, so that's where I kind of stand with that.
Yeah, and as a newbie, I haven't gotten a chance to talk to
Great, fair enough.
the people who are even coming back, so, yeah. And, you know, there are some changes that are proposed in here as well, and I think it might be worth having a broader discussion on some of those too. I know that, you know, there's some of the pieces in here, and I'm looking at some of the other commissions in town, and there's 3 or 5 members. You know, you said you were having a hard time finding 7?
Well, no, the three that are current board members, you know, were being retained, so I needed 4 others. But the reason, one of the big changes for the P and Z was to take the total number of members down from 9 to 7, and that would facilitate, and it would make it easier, let's put it that way, to get a quorum. There have been a number of issues and questions in the past where getting 5 there for a quorum was, you know, a bit dicey, and so to eliminate that, I don't really know if, there's no magic to the number, but, you know, I think maybe in some people's minds, the more the better, but there come challenges with that.
Oh, yeah, I certainly don't think we need to keep 9. I just don't,
Right,
with the
so,
other commissions we have, it feels, I certainly don't think we need to appoint 9 people when there are 7 elected to the board. You know, I don't think I think 7 or fewer
You're
is
trying to
really
make it harder than it needs to be.
right.
Yeah.
So I think a larger discussion would be valuable on this.
And I doubt there's ever going to be anything that comes before the Planning and Zoning Commission at 7, because it's easily the same, you know, as 9. So I just felt, well, we'll reduce it, we'll kind of, with a clean slate, start with 3 members on it, and at the same time, make quorum, establishing a quorum easier. So that was the logic behind that.
And
So,
then the other thing was if we could take a look at the appointment expiration dates, because the expiration dates that were in the line of what was it?
Yeah, I think there's some we gathered.
right,
That could have been addressed, but I think Reagan had addressed that they should be staggered.
Okay.
We could have dealt with that tonight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
But
There are
if
a
you
whole
want
bunch
to
of
have a bigger discussion, I would say if you're not ready to have that discussion tonight, then you have, your option would be to table the matter generally, direct the staff to bring it back when it's ready, or to table it to a committee of the whole, if that's what you want to do. But there's some action in that regard should be taken if you're not going to take any action tonight.
yeah, and the email that Eric sent out indicated the dates that does stagger them at 2, 3, and then 4 years. So,
And the other thing to realize is that although these terms have expired, some people get nervous that, well, are their votes somehow invalid? And the answer is no. Under the common law, you hold your office if you don't resign it until your successor is qualified, and you all should well know.
Yes.
And so,
We are well aware.
but this is obviously a little different context, but yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So do you want to table to a committee of the whole?
we can, absolutely, and I'll go ahead and send out, well, I've already sent it out to both Kathleen and Erica, the names and phone numbers. Email I don't have for each individual, but I can go ahead and forward that information on to you, and you can go ahead, excuse me, and touch base with every one of the individuals that, you know, a number of them you should know, just by, you know, past association with their service already. But regardless, you can go ahead and give them a buzz, and then let them know, you know, find out where they stand and what you'd like to find out. So,
Do I need to make a motion to table?
Yeah, the motion would be to table items E and F under other agenda items to the committee of the whole in the future. It doesn't need to be a specific date, because it's not a zoning matter, that's pending before you like with a property. So staff can just bring it back on the schedule so the stars align correctly.
I'll try to say that the way you just said it. I will make a motion to table items E and F under other agenda items to a future committee of the whole when we've had a chance to vet the appointees and staffs have the opportunity to research it further.
Second. Kevin?
Trustee Mahoney?
Yes.
Trustee Coonsey?
Yes?
Trustee Britton?
Yes.
Trustee Saviano?
Yes.
Trustee Schreiber?
Yes.
And Trustee Sauer?
Yes.
Okay. And it'll take us to item G, if you'd like to read that into the record for discussion.
This is a discussion of the requested TIF cap increase for elimination of Cal land.
Okay. Erica, can you give us a quick rundown of the
Sure, so I've been at several meetings with the owner of the property contained in the Route 25 and Christina Drive TIF. There's a lot of interest in developing additional parcels in that TIF. And in order to get myself up to speed, I've been looking through what we've been doing, or what agreements the village is currently bound to, and what potential opportunities we would have in the future to modify any agreement. So the current agreement with Mr. Palumbo has a $10 million cap on expenses that can be reimbursed, that are eligible expenses in the TIF. Now, in order for him to continue to develop and be eligible to get additional reimbursement, we would have to, if there was a desire, increase that cap or eliminate it altogether. There's obviously been a lot of development over there, but there's still a lot of parcels that have the capability to be developed. So I invited Mr. Palumbo and his attorney to come tonight and give a presentation to give the board an idea of what they hope to achieve and what they would like to do if they were to get some authorization from the board to move forward with some kind of increase or elimination of the cap. Mr. Palumbo's out of town, so his attorney's here to give this presentation tonight, but what I would like for the board to consider while we're listening to this is that this is just an information gathering portion of our meeting. We're not negotiating back and forth at this point. We're just trying to get a sense of what Mr. Palumbo would like to do, and then from the board's perspective, what you may like to see in return, because this is a collaboration, it is a negotiation, it is something that would be a back and forth discussion, and then at a later meeting, if we come to a consensus about how we would like to proceed, then we would potentially bring back an agreement, modified agreement for the board to approve. So with that, I will invite Mr. Bezos to come forward and present. And if you know how, can you expand that a little larger?
I don't know that I'll need to expand it, perhaps I just need to move it. Catherine, do I just push the arrow buttons?
We've got the
Oh, I
plus.
see, there we go.
You have a plus and minus for Zoom, at least it would get it a little bit larger at the top.
You know, that's,
There you go.
Right underneath there, go straight down.
The circle.
There you go, there you go, perfect,
There you go.
perfect.
Okay.
How about that?
Look at you go.
Yes.
Leave it.
Good evening, my name is Peter Bezos, an attorney in Elton, Peter Bezos. I've been before the village board many times before, but I'm just meeting Mrs. Storley the first time, and I'm meeting Mr. Lyman in that chair for the first time, so congratulations.
Thank you. Welcome back.
So I represent Cal Land, as Erica said. Joe Palumbo is the principal. He's out of state, someplace warm, darn it. But here with me this evening are Joe's daughter, Rena Zarowski, who's also his HR director and #1 assistant. Jeff Newing, who's his COO. Brian Johnson, our civil engineer with Pinnacle Engineering, and also Mr. Scott Hoffman, who's the operations manager. Pal Land is the owner of the Terra Business Park, which essentially is the, there, here, and all of this. So slide 1, let me do it this way. This is what the Terra Business Park looked like in 2000. No, is it right? No. Let me go further. Why is that moving? I'm getting the arrows and it's not. Oh,
Is it because it's expanded?
it probably is.
Yeah,
Size.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Sure. This is what the Terra Business Park land looked like in 2008, which was shortly after the village board first adopted TIF legislation for this area. And it essentially was a mined out former gravel mine with no commercial activity whatsoever other than filling going on. And so in April of 2008, the first RDA was entered into redevelopment agreement, RDA, which is, we could also call it a TIF agreement with our client. And it covered this, just the gold area here. I'll do that. Okay, good. I didn't see the cursor. Okay, so it covered the gold area. And that was 99.5 acres. Jeff, why don't you stay right here? And there was a $10 million cap put on that RDA. And so, if any of you need to know how TIFs work, please feel free to ask. Subsequently, in May of 2012, an additional 61.3 acres was added. And this was the Christina Drive TIF that you see up there in blue. The 2008 RDA, which covered 99 acres, was rolled into an amended and restated development agreement dated November 14, 2012, that covered the land for both the gold and the blue. And the acreage was thus increased to 160.8. The TIF districts were not combined, but the RDA was combined. Again, there was no change in the $10 million cap from the original golden area. In 2016, our client bought an additional 60 acres of land from Plody, and Jeff, if you would show that. This increased the acreage to about 220 acres. Again, there was no change to the cap, the $10 million cap. And then in 2017, Mr. Palumbo bought what we call the Penny Road Triangle, which is just north of Penny Road and between Penny Road and Jeff is showing you in Route 68. Also no change. That, by the way, that parcel is, as indicated by the color, is part of the Prairie Lake TIF district, which was in place before any of Mr. Palumbo's TIFs. And it has, we believe, another couple of years to go. So let's go to the next slide, which shows the first layer, which shows some of the development. So since 2012, Mr. Palumbo has himself built and developed 4 buildings of approximately 230,000 square feet at an estimated cost of about $30 million of investment. Jeff, do you want to show where those buildings are? There's 201 Christina Drive.
201 Christina is right on the right side here.
And then 401
Christina Drive, the larger 85,000 square foot building on the north side.
And then call
201 was built first?
Yes.
yes, and that's where Mr. Palumbo's office is.
Yeah, with the floral
Right, right.
sculpture.
And then you see 200 Christina Drive on the left side, the west side of Christina Drive, and then 200 Patricia, which is the newest.
250.
Or 250, I'm sorry.
That was just completed in July of last year.
So with an investment of about $30 million in the buildings and another $8 million in streets, sewer, water infrastructure, there's about $38 million of Mr. Palumbo's own development. But in addition to that, Enterprise Rent-A-Car purchased a site, you can see at the very top, and developed it with a 15,000 square foot building and invested in doing all of that about $9 million. And finally, along Higgins Road, Speedway, which mercifully is finally open, bought that site and invested another $7 million in developing it. And on top of that is contributing $1 million to the traffic signal that we're all anxiously waiting for at that intersection. That Speedway is going to be generating significant sales tax and motor fuel tax for the village. I guess for those then who might question whether TIF incentives, let alone sales tax incentives, work, all you need to do is compare the first chart I showed you to this one. Those incentives were critical to bringing this development here to this site. During all of this development that we've just talked about, there has been no increase in the $10 million cap. So as of the moment we stand here, $8 million, the village has issued to Mr. Colombo $8,288,500 of change, so $8,288,500 of face value TIF notes. There have been some payments on them, but those are the original TIF notes. And each of those notes bears interest at 6% until paid. So that leaves us right now room for TIF notes of additional TIF notes of only $1.7 million in change. As of this date, Mr. Colombo, this is why we're here before you tonight, would like to make substantial additional further investments in this business park. He's proposing in the amendment that's part of your package to commence the construction during calendar year 2024 of a hotel. Initially we wrote having at least 50 guest rooms. I understand now it's going to be more likely 63 guest rooms on lot 1, which is the entrance to the business park. It's just across the street, if you will, from Speedway. And that project would be completed within 18 months of commencement. That hotel would have, obviously we have to qualify for a liquor license, but we'd be asking for a liquor license and probably a gaming license. I don't know if the village gets involved in gaming licenses or cedes all of that to the state. But in any event, Mr. Colombo would be asking you for both a liquor license and a gaming license, and of course both of those would generate additional revenues for the village. The next slide, you want to show the building at the north end, please, Jeff? So this is up at the north end, just below that Penny Road triangle near Route 68. He's proposing to commit, just like he would be committing for the hotel, he's proposing to commit to build a 35,000 square foot industrial building up at the top of Penny Road, or at the top of Christina Drive. And also to eliminate, if you want to show them the detention pond, Jeff?
Yeah. The ComEd property is on the lower portion of the screen, so you understand the orientation.
Yeah. So show where the building would be.
The building would be up here where it says Penny Road, right by this entrance. This is the rectangular area where that building would sit. This is the ComEd property on the right side of the village.
And that detention pond is about 10 acres, Joe tells me, and you can see his large lake immediately to the west. Being in the business that he's in, which is a lot of earth moving and formerly mining, he would be using some of this additional TIF cap to eliminate that detention pond as you see it, pipe it into his lake, which has more than adequate capacity, compact that 10-acre detention pond, and make it thus available for development to support buildings and parking lots, etc. So the projects that I just described to you that Mr. Colombo would like to commit to, we can enter into this new amendment, would be, which is the hotel, the new building up here, and the moving of the detention pond, is estimated to be about an additional $17 million of development, of which an estimated $2 million would be public infrastructure. as I pointed out to you, there's just not enough room in this remaining TIF cap of $10 million. There's only 1.7 million left. So what we've asked in our draft amendment that is before you is that the $10 million cap be eliminated completely. Now, that doesn't mean the sky's the limit, because the village is only able to give Mr. Palumbo TIF notes and reimbursement while the TIF legislation is in place, which is 23 years from the original date of enactment. And if we have our numbers right, the first TIF district, the Route 25 TIF was enacted in '06, which would mean 2029. That's another 7 years. And the second TIF district that goes up to Penny Road was enacted in 2010, which is another, so that takes it to 2033, another 11 years. So we're asking that the TIF cap be removed, and Mr. Palumbo would hurry and do all the development he could while they're in place. He's offering, in return for also spending all this much more money, he's also offering to not ask for any interest on any of the notes that you might issue him after the $10 million has been achieved. So we're at 8 point something now, he's got another 1.7 to go. All those notes bear interest at 6% under the existing agreements. The notes after $10 million that the amendment would provide would be interest-free. Again, the amendment provides that he would complete the Penny Road industrial building and the detention pond location before the end of 2024. He would start the hotel in 2024 and complete it within 18 months. He also asks, as part of this hotel project, that the village agree not to charge any hotel operators or room tax for 15 years from the date of opening. And I talked to him today about that a little more in depth, and he said to me that the hotel business is, number one, fairly thin in terms of profitability, and is certainly subject to shutdown risks big time. The pandemic just killed lots of hotels. So he's taking this risk of putting a hotel in because he thinks it's going to work, and he thinks it's going to enhance the park, let alone the village. But he would like the village to waive that 5%. Right now you have, as I read it, a 5% hotel operators tax, and he'd like you to waive that. Would you go back to the overall development slide? There, so point out the 9.7 acre site. That golden colored square at the bottom left, .7, it abuts on the west side, it abuts the cemetery. He's actively looking for a retailer for that site. Especially, we've got semi-truck dealership, it just strikes him that, you know, with our truck park there, with the Plody equipment dealership across the street, we just think that there's a good possibility that we'll get something like that, which would be a real boon to the village because of big sales tax from big ticket vehicles. We obviously can't promise that we'll get that, but he's holding out for retail. He's also restarting plans to build what was discussed at some length a few years ago here at the board, which is the retail center that's up there, the retail center, just immediately west of Speedway and east of that semi-truck parking. That was put on hold because tenancies were so impossible, retailers weren't opening up during the pandemic. He is going back to the drawing board with that, kind of refining his plans, and if he can line up some tenants that would support the investment, we'll be back on that one too. So we're not promising, we can't promise either of those last two items I just talked about, but he felt it was important for you to know that he's working hard to bring more retail generation to the village. So now what we're hoping for tonight, and I heard very clearly what Erica said, that you're not going to vote on this tonight. Here's a problem that we'd like to share with you, because truly this is a public-private partnership. we all know about the supply chain shortages. It takes a good months and months and months, if not a year, to get precast steel, or precast concrete, and to get structural steel. There's just a huge waiting time for that. And you can't even order those things until your designers have, have drawn the building, shown it to the village, make sure that they're, good with the structure and design. Then you can order those long lead items. So our best hope, if we can get this approved quickly, is to have those materials in hand in 2023 sometime. So we know that your village attorney hasn't reviewed the amendment that I've prepared for you, and we understand you're going to want to talk about it and talk again next month. But we just wonder if we might have some expression of support for these requests, the cap raise, with a give back of no interest above 10 million, promise of the industrial building, the promise of the hotel. Because if we can get a strong showing that the village board likes that, reserving the right to make a final vote next month, Mr. Colombo is willing to take the additional risk to release his designers to get started. Every month is a month. So I'll leave that to you in your discussion, but please, if you could clearly express your support or hopefully not qualms so that we know whether Joe doesn't want to waste money if we can't come to an agreement. So thanks very much. We're here to answer any questions you've got. You have anything to add, Joe?
Being aware of the limitations that are in place. We've already gone through a lot of the engineering Pinnacle has on the civil needs in the northern portion of the property, getting ready for the infrastructure that needs to go in there. So we're already outlaying a lot of the costs ourselves because we see the value in it, and that we hope that you guys will as well. We just want to have that flexibility to be able to grow up there, and that acres and acres of property that we can start quickly developing it.
I got one question on the retention pond. What is the depth of that? You know offhand?
It is probably like 15, it's pretty shallow.
Okay.
It would fill up very rapidly and overflow, and we would try and control it as best we could, and that's our goal is to eliminate it at this point.
So, I mean, if you drain it, the plan is to fill it immediately, or, I mean, I'm just kind of wondering, if it's always been a small pond like that, I'm just wondering how stable the ground is underneath it for, for any sort of structure that goes on it. So how much time would have to pass before you empty it, before you'd be able to build on it?
We've, if you can see on this original photograph, there is an immense amount of water that was, a lot of these areas were fully underwater, and I know that some years we would need to wait to develop on that, but if we're able to fill it this year, get it compacted, be able to, put things on it and keep it compacted, and develop in that far corner, potentially look at extending, there's been discussions about extending Rock Road through the center of the property, being able to make that connection to Route 68, and be able to have easier access to that first building and future buildings that we could put on both sides of that road. Your main structures would be away from that center area, and we would obviously do everything needed to provide as much compaction in that space.
Well, and I would also observe the 401 Christina Drive building, if not the 201, which Mr. Colombo's in, but the 401, I remember him educating me on what structural pilings are.
Geopiers?
Geopiers. So they put geopiers down the bedrock there to support that building. I'm sure they'd be able to do the same thing there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only 15 feet deep, absolutely. I'm sure you can grade it to even a lower level, but yeah. It had to be a lot of piers for 401.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And it's full, case loss, et cetera. Yeah.
So, okay, then, and also too, not that, getting the cart before the horse, but on the dealership site, the 9.7 lot 4,
has he run into any issues with attracting a dealership because of competition with other businesses that reside currently, that being repairs? I know that, dealerships, obviously, they're gonna have service, they're gonna have sales, but, they're gonna want their own garages and so forth to service some of those trucks and that they sell, and I'm just wondering if, maybe, we're thinking,
We've been, for the past, pardon me, we've been lobbying several dealerships, both used as well as brand new dealerships, and showing them the yard and showing them the property, as well as the other repair shops and people that have been here. And everybody has shown interest. Obviously, it's a financial commitment and a risk to take a step over here. But we were lobbying Acme Truck Parts since 2017 to come over here. We would see their trucks pull in and out of our parking lot several times a week. Finally, they snapped and said, "We got to be there." And now they're a tenant in our 201 building, and they only have 2 locations. They got rid of one of their other ones, and people are constantly using their services. We have 20, 30 other trucking companies on a waiting list, desiring property in our space, want to be at that new building that we've been talking about. And, hey, as soon as you guys have the plans, as soon as you're building it, let us know, we'll buy in. And we've been getting that same vibe from the dealership, and we're just gonna keep on knocking on their doors from all over the country and all over the neighborhoods to try and get either somebody that wants to move the dealership to us because we have an audience there, or somebody new that wants to come to the area.
So you're seeing it more as a synergistic type of a
Exactly.
going on there instead of a competitive
Correct.
environment.
Right now, we have 15 truck repair shops. They're all doing well. They're all have found their niches. Some are repairing different things to deal with trucks and that industry. And even though they're going to say they don't like the competition, and obviously staffing is difficult, everybody is, we have several of our tenants wanting more space, So, that's in the back of our minds.
One of the synergies with Speedway. Speedway saw saw the truck parking that existed and wanted to be there.
You mentioned a few times about the client wanted us to waive taxes on this hotel, I'll give him a liquor license, all these things. He wants them, though. He's gonna open a hotel and operate it, is that what we're saying?
He'll either have an operator run the hotel for him, or he'll lease the land to a hotel operator. I guess it's not 100% sure whether Mr. Palumbo will be, making decisions about room rates, but he'll either operate.
It's not gonna be like a chain, it's gonna be a Palumbo hotel.
Oh, we're just not sure, but it'll be a qualified operator, and the liquor license holder will have to be qualified as well, right? Am I answering your question? I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess what you're saying is we don't know yet.
We don't, but whoever will be very well qualified to run it. If Joe decides to own the hotel, he'll hire a hotel operator to run it from, because he knows what he doesn't know, and I don't think he claims to know much about hotels, other than that his park needs one.
We see an audience that we have helped create there in East Dundee, that a hotel will help satisfy a missing element with them. Putting a retail center there could put some food elements there that would satisfy another need that those people don't have, that we already have as customers. So we're looking at as a hotel could be that. If we could provide enough of a customer base, maybe it could be a custom designed hotel that could be turned into a formatted hotel, a Holiday Inn Express or something like that. Or we started out as being one of those items. We just don't know at this point. It's a little early in the stage.
Or he'd be committed to building it, and he'd have to come to those decisions quickly if you approve this.
Do you have any kind of estimate on what those hotel taxes generate annually?
I'm sorry, I don't.
How do you come to 15 years on the request for the reimbursement?
Mr. Palumbo told me to ask. I don't have any formula for that.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, those taxes are paid by the people that rent the rooms.
Precisely, and they're paid to the village, just like sales
Right,
tax.
so why would he want to freeze those, just to keep lower rates to rooms, is that the idea?
No, not freeze them. We
You're
just
saying you
rebate them to him.
Yes. So he wants to collect the taxes.
You collect it and then rebate it once or twice a year to him. Yeah, just like sales tax, Sharon, which we have an agreement in place with you on. Speedway has an agreement in place with you on sales tax, Sharon. So, yeah.
And you mentioned that the two structures would be potentially built in 2024, but one of those TIFs expires in 2029. So that only has about a 5-year opportunity for a reimbursement. Do you have any kind of sense of what the total cost would be for that 5 years that we would need to repay based on the investment that's being made in that TIF?
So we can certainly come up with that. So for those of you that are not really deeply familiar with TIF, you can only get reimbursement from a municipality for, they call it eligible project redevelopment costs, TIF costs. And TIF costs include land acquisition, which we don't need to do any of that, public improvements, roads, grading, site remediation, demolition, but doesn't include any ground-up new construction. So the new hotel he would build, the 63-room or 50-room or something in between, none of that construction cost going up would be TIF eligible, except for maybe the geopiers, which are considered to be site stabilization. The same thing for the new industrial building. But up by the new industrial building, we need roads, sewer, and water, and the detention pipe. So those things would be. So I don't know how much more TIF eligible expenses this would generate, but the TIF increment would increase, right?
Certainly it would. For the board to make a decision about this and whether to increase the cap or to eliminate it, they would want to know how much we potentially would be putting out. Because if they're going to increase it to only 12 million and you say, but it's going to be 4 million in expenses, then that's not going to be enough. Just giving the board enough latitude to make a decision one way or the other on whether or not there's an increase or an elimination.
So it's now estimated to be 17 million, and I'm sorry, because when the hotel grew from 50 to 63, the cost went up, so we're now estimating 17 million. We can provide more, so we could tell you, well, we've already told you what our estimated construction costs are. We can break it down between ground up and then TIF eligible, and then then what we have to do is project, I guess through discussions with the Dundee Township assessor, how we would assess those properties. And then we'd know what the increment would be, right? Is that what you're looking for? Okay. So we understand that, we'll get that, and we'll get it early so that you're not getting it for the first time at the next meeting.
Can I also ask them, let's just for argument's sake, everything was approved right now. Am I understanding that you're thinking of breaking ground on the north building and then the hotel by the end of 2024? Or are you going to be finished by the end of 2024?
The industrial building would be finished by the end of 2024. The hotel would be started no later than, and we're estimating, so we're giving ourselves 18 months from the date we break ground on the hotel to get a certificate of occupancy and start renting rooms.
One of our biggest ticket items is precast concrete. And right now, if we ordered tomorrow, the earliest we would see it is the end of May of next year. That's the earliest we could get it from any of the providers.
2023.
2023. So that's how far out they are. So that's one of the sacrifices we have to go along with. And, that's just been escalating as it's been going on,
So we said, and when we was not trying to take up any more of your time, we said that Joe would like to release his designers as soon as possible, because without the designs, you don't know how much precast you need in steel. So we're very interested in hearing the sense of the board. We realize you need details for next meeting, but I mean, if you hate this whole idea, then tell us, but hopefully you like it and somehow share that with us. I think Joe would be willing to start opening his checkbook even more. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Appreciate your
I- we'll get right on.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, well, I think that finishes up then our other agenda items for the meeting, so we can go back to the consent agenda. So if I could have a motion for item 5A.
Mayor, sorry, you're not intending to get the sense of the board or no?
Well, I'm sure we have, I'll ask the board right now, do we have a consensus on the idea of once further information is provided, that we move forward with this? As far as in your words, liking the idea, I'm all for it. I have no problem with the proposal. The details of it, still need to be discussed, and we need to find out exactly what some of the financials are, and how they'll affect the village today and down the road. But beyond that, I don't have any issues. Does anybody else have any things
I
that they
would
would
say
like?
that the work that you guys have done already is
Yeah, absolutely.
certainly improved East Dundee, and I think that more of that would be definitely something we would be interested in pursuing, yes.
I really like the idea of the hotel.
Yeah.
I think we need one, and I like to look at us as a destination place, so I think it goes further with our alignment, or at least my alignment, someone I've spoken to, so I'm thinking.
Yeah. And, with regard to the hotel, I mean, just for my part personally, if the choice were available, I think we would probably like to see a franchised operation going in there as opposed to, an independent, simply because it's likely to have greater financial support from the home company that would be running the franchise or, if you will. So there would lie the possibility or probability of greater success of it. But the idea, just on its face of a hotel, I like quite a bit. So.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
I guess my only question is, and I think the forthcoming details will help me answer this, it's not the idea of it, I love the idea of everything, it's just whether it's the cap elimination or the cap increase. Right, I feel like I need more information to make that specific call, but I don't know. I feel like I need more information to make that.
Yeah, I think we all do, simply because I've looked into it a little bit, and I don't understand, frankly, in no other TIFs that exist in East Dundee, we have 9 in total. Does the cap exist except for Mr. Columbus, Christina TIF? I don't understand it. I didn't understand it when it was first put in. I certainly didn't understand the interest on the notes that were submitted until paid. That one, frankly, rubs me raw. And so I would like to discuss the opportunity or the option or possibility of eliminating any further interest from the 8.2 that's already been submitted rather than wait till we get to the 10. I understand that the 10 is more contractual, and so, if that were to come to pass, then it certainly will, if there's going to be $17 million more invested, that we're likely going to have to pay on that. But nowhere else in the town does that kind of arrangement exist, and I didn't understand it when it was first put in. I don't understand it now. And so, because quite frankly, I mean, once these expenses are submitted to us, we go ahead and we'll submit them to the county. If they drag their heels on this and it doesn't get on the rolls until a year after the building has gone up, that's really not any sort of fault of the village, yet it's costing us 6% on any of the expenses that have been submitted as a result. And so that we're paying for that is quite a bit. I mean, hey, 6% on 8.2, that's a nice chunk of change.
It is.
So, and if it goes to 10, it's even more. So, like I say, I appreciate Joe's willingness to forego any further interest from 10. And again, if we're looking to increase the cap from 10 to 15, and you're looking to put a $17 million investment in, it doesn't really make sense to either keep it or just go 5. You might as well go 25. Simply because you're going to be here soon enough once you have hit the 15 mark. That's, like I say, that's going to happen fairly quickly. There's a number of things that we need to discuss, both with our attorneys and with
We'll be in touch with Erica, and we'll be generating some hard numbers, and Erica will ask for clarification. We'll get it, and hopefully